This podcast is powered by The Plug.
Hey, Nina.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. This is the first podcast that we're doing in my house in person, so I'm very excited. Hopefully the audio will be okay. If not, stick with me as we continue to invest in better technology.
Yes.
So, Nina, before we get started, today we're going to be talking about Sacred Sisterhood, but I would love for the audience to learn a little bit about you, who you are, I guess your path and relationship to wellness in that journey, and then we'll kind of branch into how Sacred Sisterhood plays a role in that.
Yeah.
So who are you?
I am Nina Bourne. I grew up in Colorado as a competition dancer. So that was my first exposure to sisterhood in general. And through my own physical health issues, seeking some deeper meaning, struggling with anxiety and depression and identity, I have landed here in my wellness journey. And so now I am a theta healing practitioner to help people more so one-on-one with their transformational journey in reconciling with traumatic events or belief systems that don't serve them anymore, and help them with a meditation process, and to create a reality and programs in their mind and beliefs that support them.
So what is theta healing for those who aren't familiar? I know when you first started studying it, I was like, wow, that sounds really cool, but I had no idea what it meant. And then I did a meditation with you and it completely changed. Like from that one meditation that I participated in, I was able to manifest so many different things, like this podcast included. I was able to really get focused, and it's cool because, and I'm sure there's different intentions. I'll let you talk about the different ways that it can be explored, but it was a great way for me to get centered via meditation, but also create. And I feel like sometimes when you are looking for some sort of manifestation meditation, they're often like very masculine energy and very like pushing forward and like too much and not grounded. And so for some people that really works. And I talk about this a lot in terms of like, some people love Joe Dispenza or Tony Robbins. And I think those people know their brand really well. Like for the average person who's working a corporate job in America, like that style of motivation and speaking works for them. For me, it like makes me put up a guard. It's way too aggressive for me. But like we all need to find things that work for us, right? But so I found your style to be especially feminine and comforting and warming. A very basic level. What is theta healing?
Yeah, so theta healing is a spiritual philosophy and a meditation technique to bring you into the theta state. And so for those unfamiliar, the theta state is basically a bridge from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind. And this is important to utilize and practice this muscle of arriving into the theta state, because in our subconscious mind, there are our belief systems and thought patterns and programs. So if we are constantly thinking, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not worthy of $1 million, I'll never find my life purpose, we're constantly playing out those programs just like in a computer in the background. So if we can go in through this meditation technique using spirituality, because for me, bridging science, the theta brainwave state with spirituality is where the magic really happens.
Yeah, that's a beautiful descriptor. Where else do we find ourselves in the theta state? Like if we weren't accessing it from this meditation, when else are we in that?
So the easiest way that we experience it is right before bed and right as we're waking up. So when you're still kind of in your dreamy sleeping land, but you can still hear everything, you're still very aware of what's going on in the room. Another example is if you're driving down the highway and you miss your exit and you're like, oh, I don't even know where I was. Or you arrive home on your normal path from work to home, like, oh man, I don't even remember my drive.
That autopilot that you tap into. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense for me. The one that I did with you a couple months ago, I finished and I was like, oh my God, I need to do this more. Yeah, I highly recommend if you have any time. Nina hosts regularly Zoom opportunities to get engaged because we know that people are all over the place. And honestly, for this type of meditation, I think it's really nice to do it in the privacy of your own home.
Yeah.
I was very vulnerable after and had like a full cry sesh and like journaling. So that can be a really way to connect. And there wasn't other people on camera, but I found it very nice to be on camera with you and just have this understanding of like, we're here, but there's no vanity attached.
Right.
Like when COVID started, we were all on Zoom. It was a lot of like needing to look perfect. And even before we started recording this, there was the like touch up appearance option, and we put it on and both went, nah, we didn't like how like perfect it looked. Exactly. So, exactly. So I think the more we can also engage in being on camera without this expectation of it looking perfect. Like a lot of doing this social media and podcasts and stuff for me has been very healing because it's like, no, it doesn't need to be airbrushed everything. Right. So that was a cool opportunity. So yeah, definitely if that sounds of any interest, follow Nina Bourne at
ninaborn.net is the website.
And your Instagram is
Nina_Divina_.
Beautiful. Okay, so let's get into some sacred sisterhood. This is a topic that you and I are both very passionate about. We both had a young, early beginning in competition dance. And I think that both granted us the wonderful opportunity to experience a life full of eating disorders and massive competition, like
body dysmorphia.
Way beyond the studio. It affects your lives and your way of thinking in a way that I don't know that other realms of existence or hobbies do, especially given how young you start, right? Like I was hating my thighs at 7. You know what I mean? And so that's just like that's really hard. And that's something that I struggle with now in terms of wanting dance to be very much a part of my life and teach it to other young kids. But like, how do I get them in a space where dance is really about the dance, not staring at themselves in a leotard with all these like negative thoughts in the mirror?
Comparison. I need to be this way. I should be this way. Yeah.
It's a lot of freaking pressure.
It's a lot. And it's not realistic.
It's not. And women are already going through that at such a young age, like whether they're in such a performance focused sport or not. And when I say performance, I mean like, yes, you're performing on stage, but like you have to turn it on all the time. So like then you're in this consistent state of acting and like showing up and being very animated, and it's very entertaining for those around you. But I think we all get to a certain point, depending upon our age, where we're like, well, I can't perform anymore.
Right.
I have to be able to like turn it off or sit down because it's very taxing. So I also had an experience with being in a dance community and thinking, oh my gosh, this is like exactly where I need to be. And then having some really hideous, traumatic experiences with the person who I thought was going to be the leader of that space and who like really had it, set it all up for me. And
someone that you need to trust.
Yeah. And I was 17. And so for this woman to have been like a full grown woman was very disorienting. And I went to 3 different high schools across 4 years and 2 different colleges. So like felt like I was always the new girl. So finding community was often very challenging for me. Right. So I thought at this place, oh, this is cool. This isn't related to school. It's a lot of other women that were like elders in comparison to me. I was definitely the youngest on the team. I think probably the next youngest was maybe 30 or something. So it was a lot of opportunities for cultivation and to feel something healthy, but it ended up not being that. And there was already this distrust for women. So I think when you and I came together recently and started working on doing events with one another, we really cherished this. Like, I think you are the first person that I've been able to really have this relationship in terms of like, we rain check and it's fine. We're late and it's fine. We're not feeling up to something and it's fine. And that is something that I am still disappointed with when I start engaging with other people or other women. And I'm like, oh, damn, they're not as accepting as Nina. So how do you think you got to that place? Or like, let's hear the bad. And then what was the transition and the recognition?
30 years of
trauma. Working on it.
Well, Oh man, where do we start with this? Honestly, it first began with my own healing journey and reconciliation with myself, because in being a performer and having to, just in the society that in the United States that we are brought up to be this perfect woman, you know, we start reading Vogue or Cosmopolitan when we're in adolescence or younger.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, I was always trying to be what I thought would help me be loved or accepted. And so to be in this dance community, I had to be a certain way for them to accept me and love me and belong, feel a sense of belonging. These are all core things that every human needs.
Yeah.
I'm also adopted, so I already have this deep wound of wanting to belong and be loved and not abandoned, right? So it began when I took accountability for myself and said, wow, I'm performing. I'm not being authentic with myself. This isn't who I am. I don't want to go out and be a party girl or be the wild dancer chick, you know, as a young 20s, late teenager.
Yeah. And I don't want to derail your story, but like, what was the catalyst for that? Like, what was the turning point, or when did you wake up in a sense?
It was my own body, my physical body breaking down. I had a lot of gut issues, bloated all of the time. I felt awful. I was having breakdowns almost every single day. I was cheating on the boyfriend who was my first love. I just in a total train wreck, hitting rock bottom.
Yeah.
Depressed, but I didn't know I was depressed because 10 years ago there wasn't as much information as there is
At all.
Anxiety, like I look back and like, oh my God, I've had anxiety forever.
Yeah.
So realizing that it doesn't maybe have to be this way, and I can't continue living this way.
Yeah.
And having a support system, honestly, a separate support system that really showed up for me and was there for me.
What did that look like for you, and how did you cultivate that?
So at the time, it was actually my boyfriend's family,
Okay.
My first love, and his father had, I think, healed himself with cancer naturally.
Wow.
I think I might be wrong with that, but he really started introducing me to holistic health and yoga and meditation and supplements and herbs and spirituality kind of books, looking for something higher and more magical than just me. So having that kind of influence really just lit me up. And I felt very safe in their family. The main thing, even still today, is feeling safety. And I really felt safety within that family. I felt very seen to express myself in my worst states and in my best states, where I always had kind of felt conditional love, especially in the dance community. I was tall, and so even just by being a tall person, I was told that tall people go to the back so that the short people can be seen. And so, you know, being in the back from age 3 when I started until 18, when I stopped competition dance, I had this subconscious belief that being tall is a burden, and in order to shine and to do well, I have to be behind someone. I have to be someone's shadow. I can't just shine in my full expression as Nina, as myself, in whatever the fuck state that I'm in. So yeah, that feeling of safety is huge, especially in the last 2 years in a pandemic where we're constantly bombarded with fear and anxiety and death and grief. And in the US, you know, we're not really taught how to cope with these things, maybe worldwide.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
At this level.
Yeah. And I want to go back to what you were saying about, like, we grew up reading these cosmopolitans of like how to give them the best blowjob and have abs and your new makeup trend and like what you need to buy. Like there's so much pressure on women. And let's be clear, like this is not I really enjoyed the last interview I did because we were able to talk about the privileges that we have as women and the challenges that men face. So this is not, when I speak about these things, I want to be very clear in that it is not to negate the other sex in any way, shape, or form. But I definitely don't feel like we acknowledge the pressures, be they very small, right? Because someone from the outside could just go, oh, big deal. Like you have a magazine telling you to do this, but like it's everywhere and it's all the time. And you go out without makeup and like, I can even see like the things that I can pull or like the power that I can demand is very different if I'm like made up or not. And that is super annoying. And then there's like, I remember I had a counselor tell me in school, yeah, but when you're going to that next department, I would just like tone down the makeup a little bit or like tone down the outfit. And I was like, why? Because this like old professor dude isn't going to take me seriously. Like I could probably run circles around most of his students, but because I come in with a winged eyeliner and like some color, it's a problem. So, there's that element of programming as women, but also I have seen specifically in the States, I cannot say that for sure it doesn't exist around the world, but I can definitely see from my observations personally, and then also my international friends of like women are bred here to compete.
Yes.
Like we look at all other women as competition. In other countries, you'll see women like casually holding hands and they're not seen as lesbian. And there's nothing wrong with being lesbian, but it's like our relationships here become so binary in terms of like they're either competition or they're like lovers.
Yeah.
And that like what a small emotional experience we're then reduced to. Yeah. And so it's talk about feeling safe. Like if you're always on edge with these people who are supposed to be your friends because you're trying to compete with them, whether it's subconscious or not, it's like, you have to, one has to make a concerted effort to, when they're hearing good news, checking in with their subconscious and being like, am I feeling jealous of this? Am I envious of this person? Or am I able to genuinely just be excited for them? Because it's like, when somebody wins, like we all win,
right?
We're all just extensions of this one big experience. And the idea that anyone is really your competition, aside from like maybe a business model and like finding, your SWOT analysis or whatever, is just, it's not serving. And it, talk about a subconscious, puts a lot of ickiness that is dampening, that it hinders one's own creativity. Like you really can't even create to the level that you could, because now you're concerned and your energy is put somewhere else. Yeah. So with dance, you felt like that was definitely.
Oh yeah. I always felt a separation. I never felt good enough. I never felt appreciated for all of the work I put in,
It's terrible.
And I've been in multiple different dance scenes. So in the competition world, we have similar backgrounds. So competition world as kids growing up, and then world dance thereafter. And it's the same. Honestly, it's very rare that I'm finding, until recently, because sisterhood and women unifying is kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
Is really hard, and it's a lot of drama. I'm finding we're almost like obsessed with the drama or gossiping, and this goes across all cultures. The gossip of what is she doing with him? I like him, but that girl is with him. So I need to look extra good because that girl's gonna be there.
And now she's like a whore, or like that bitch, or like now she as an individual is now categorized as something completely negative just because your motive is not achievable anymore, potentially.
Yes. Giving our power away to external forces.
Oh, yes.
Rather than honing our authenticity and being like, no, I'm a fucking queen.
Yeah.
Badass.
Yeah.
And what's meant for me is coming to me. I don't chase.
Yeah.
I attract.
Yes, attract. That's exactly what was like the word that was in my head. Yeah. Yes. How do you feel that social media is contributing to this idea of competition? Do you feel like it's made things worse or given us a broader perspective because we can subscribe to certain ideas?
It really depends on how intentional you are. So on a subconscious level, I myself still experience the comparison, because all we see is that person winning, right? We don't often post ourselves in our breakdown, crying and calling for help, or taking a week off to rest because we're burnt out. So I still see myself comparing and saying, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not doing enough. I need to do more in order to be accepted and loved and receive the abundance that is my birthright, just by virtue of living. So in that case, I think that it's very scary of what younger generations are being exposed to at such a young age, because it's not truth. It's not real.
Yeah.
And it's still it's entertainment, right? So the root of the word entertainment is taking your consciousness and entering into something else.
Oh, I like that. I did not know the etymology of that. Like, thank you. Okay.
So when you're watching sports or you're scrolling on your phone late at night, which again, late at night, you're in the theta state. So those programs are way more influencing.
Oh my gosh.
Mind.
Yeah.
So if you're watching a scary movie late at night, you're probably going to have nightmares.
Yes, I can't. And I feel like such a little like wussy because of it. I literally can't watch horror, thriller, scary. Yeah, I have nightmares like nobody's business. Oh, that's so interesting. I did not understand that about the connection between the theta state.
So, pro tip, right before bed, write down what you're grateful for, or write down a prayer or something that's beautiful that you want to cultivate, and inevitably in the morning you will wake up thinking that.
Oh, I love that. And then what do you do in the morning? Because I'm sure you have like a fantastic setup of routines, and we're both like super ADD, so maybe the routine isn't there, but like definitely the intentions of options. I like to think of it as a menu.
Yes.
And like you don't order everything from the menu every time, but like the menu's always there.
Today I want Indian food, and tomorrow I want Ethiopian.
Yeah, exactly. So we might go to bed wanting a gratitude journal, and we wake up practicing.
It depends. I try to just say a prayer or an intention before I set my feet on the ground. Mentors said that if you do nothing, at least do this, it takes 3 seconds. So I just say, thank you, angels, guides, for protecting me today and guiding me in the path that I need to be. Bring me beautiful surprises today. Let me feel loved. Let me feel received. Heal my heart if my heart's feeling a little bit tender or grief, whatever it is, just stating a prayer or intention.
That's super beautiful. Yeah, I read something about the theta state just this past week, actually, in terms of like when you get up first thing in the morning, you start checking your phone, it like pulls you out of it really rapidly. Yes. And so I know there's always, sometimes the need to check your phone, especially if there's like family member. I don't know about you, but I have everyone's location and I'm like checking them all the time, whether it's like my mom, if I know she's on a date, or my sister, if I know she's out. So a lot of times there's like, oh, okay, I want to make sure that everyone's okay. I didn't miss anything while I was sleeping. But that could probably wait 15 minutes.
Right. And even something as innocent as that is, biologically speaking, pulling your nervous system into a state of survival.
You're totally right.
Oh my God, is everyone okay? Immediately. And that's how you set the tone for your day. I'm the same way. Oh my God, what time is it? Because I'm
always late. Yeah. God, but how's that for some like self-sabotaging, over caretaking behavior?
Just
dang, Nina, I didn't know we were gonna like psychoanalyze me this podcast.
I'm speaking to the choir,
yeah, okay.
I don't wake up every day and do my mantras like I should.
Yeah.
Or not should, but I want to.
What's a mantra like most recently that you've felt connected to?
Okay, so there's 2. Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha, and that is the mantra of the green Tara, the goddess of compassion. So for myself, I'm trying to cultivate a lot more compassion. I've had a very tough and vulnerable winter. Everyone that I've talked to really has had a tough time. And especially with the nature of what we are seeing in the world, compassion keeps coming up.
Yeah.
And then Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha is the removing of obstacles. So for me, that's getting out of my own way. Let me rest in compassion, get out of my own way, and really trust myself and trust spirit in whatever I go through in my day. Because when I lose myself and when I lose trust, then it's that kind of like masculine pushing my head through instead of feeling my feminine flow and listening to my body.
Yeah.
What feels safe to me? What feels good to me? And honoring that.
I love that in terms of masculine, feminine. Masculine, I say pushing all the time, but just then you did a hand motion, and sometimes we're going to use video for this, but for those listening, she brought her fingers closer together and to the center of her heart and said feeling. And I think that's great imagery for feminine energy. It's feeling, it's attracting. It's like having this very strong core, but that is wrapped and enveloped in all of this like feminine beauty, and just letting everything else be magnetic towards it.
Exactly.
What do you think about practicing those mantras? I believe you just shared all that in Sanskrit, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Practicing mantras in other languages. Both you and I speak multiple languages. We're both very interested in cultures across the world, and it's a priority for us to study and understand the many nuances that exist within each one.
Right.
How has practicing mantras in another language changed the way the intention setting attached to it is embodied? Or what do you like, what's the benefit, right? Because we could just say it in English, we know the translation, you know what it means. What is the importance, or why do you enjoy practicing them?
So for me, Sanskrit is the origin, right? So that's the root of it. And with these mantras, they are curated for a vibration. So when we are speaking, we are spelling and casting a spell, essentially, if you want to say, on what we're doing. We're openly manifesting. So I trust the sources that have been doing this for many, many, many of years. And it's known as a seed. So these are the seeds for the flower or the fruit. Doing mantra in other languages, if I was even to do something in Spanish, like a prayer I have in a nighttime prayer for myself is, okay, cuerpocito, ahorita es el tiempo a descansar, to rest. And just speaking in another language helps me to feel in my body what that vibration sounds like. So if I'm saying, okay, body, time to go to bed.
Very bossy.
Yeah, it's very bossy, and my body's like, oh, okay, we need to go to bed.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
Rather than cuerpocito and saying with cariño. There's not that cariño.
There's a lot of nuances within other languages, and I think the more you learn, the more you realize how much things don't translate in terms of having this like felt sense of a word. Like to say even the word cariño in Spanish, care, feels very lackluster, but that would be the translation. So I think with Sanskrit specifically, like I know in my yoga training, having learned, we got pretty well versed in it. I wish I remembered as much as I did when I was in my yoga teacher training. But in terms of all the poses, like you're learning all of these root words, right? And you're really going back into the etymology of it. And they're probably giving you 5 or 6 different general translating-ish words for one section, or like a suffix or a prefix of one word that is then used within a whole sentence or whatever. And so it's like you're studying so deep. And maybe if we didn't just learn English casually and we learned it as a second language, we would have been studying the etymology. And so there would be more of a deeper attachment to it. But because English, I will say, is an incredibly complicated language. Like in most other languages, I don't know, you'll have like one descriptive adjective or something, but English can have like 3 or 4 very specific ones. And so that is a great beauty that we have in this language. But it's like where we have all of those options in terms of vernacular and vocabulary, it's almost like it becomes too logical.
Yeah.
And so we rely on the intention behind the word rather than using, the same word for a couple different things, but relying on fluctuations of our tone or speaking with our hands or our face to evoke the emotion or whatever intention. Do you feel that way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why I, as an adult, really wanted to continue learning Spanish and surround myself around Spanish speakers, because there is it's just a different flavor.
There's a lot of emotion in Spanish.
Yes.
Passion. And I'll just leave it at that. Hey friends, if you haven't already noticed, Nina and I were really enjoying this conversation with one another, so much so that it ran almost 2 hours long. So in the interest of keeping this episode of a reasonable length, I've pulled sections that I think as listeners will be relevant to you. So this next section is about radical acceptance. Because now your expectation is not that it's like perfect all the time. It's like, no, I'm going to have these, call it quote unquote ugly or messy or whatever the fuck. No, it's just the human experience and it is all divine. But if you are categorizing it as something with a negative tinge, you're never going to be able to grow or to experience any amount of like joy and just being.
That radical acceptance.
Yeah.
This is what being a human is. And sometimes it gets dirty.
Because we want it from other people, right? Isn't that what we like go into loving relationships for or intimate friendships for? We just like want that acceptance, but we're not even giving it to ourselves. Yeah. And that's a very basic, way to put it, but it's not saying, I think with radical acceptance, people think it's just like, oh, this is me. This is my personality. And it's like, no, you accept your challenges and go, okay, I do have massive ADD. I do have to work really hard on cleaning because I'm a messy, disorganized person, but I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm just going to be strict with, okay, no, it's Sunday. You need to do this. Like it's not an option to put it off anymore. And that's the acceptance that's helped me. Yeah. How do you feel like it's been applied in your life?
I mean, it comes back to the Sacred Sisterhood thing. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because if I don't accept myself, I find that I judge other people very harshly.
Yes.
And so when I'm not accepting, not producing, like if I need a break, which I do, in human design, I'm a projector. I don't create my own energy. I need to rest in order to be inspired and to fill up my cup. And so if I'm judging myself for resting, I'll probably be on Instagram, find someone that's vacationing and resting, and she's not doing shit but being a beautiful goddess in a beautiful place and just being there. And I'll probably judge that and being like, well, why does she get to be on the Costa Rica trip? Does she have this and that? And then I'm judging, but really it's just me. Like I need to give myself. How do I give myself a retreat, whether it's an in-house retreat, I'd go to the park retreat, do my nails retreat, whatever it is, that's a sign that I'm not accepting myself.
Yeah.
And so with women especially, I've found if we have a scarcity mindset, like I've encountered this with people that I thought were my lifelong friends, of not having an open mind or acceptance for adaptability or maybe a different truth, because multiple truths can exist at the same time, then I was cut off and I was devastated. But I realized I was like, oh, that's just where they are in their journey, and I love them. And that's okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And I can feel angry that they're choosing to do this, and I do feel betrayed, and my abandonment is triggered. But if this is what needs to happen, like obviously this person doesn't unconditionally love me, and unconditionally support me. Yeah. And obviously they have some programs of scarcity of we can't exist in the same realm of wellness together, like you and I. Yeah. We can't both do sound healing. We can't both be Reiki practitioners. Yeah. When really anyone can be any of these fucking things.
And it's not going to affect your success either, because you guys will bring completely different things. You could try to do the exact same thing and it would still always be different. Always. Like we all have our own gift. I think that is so important to see someone and, like you're saying, like feel that betrayal, feel the lack of coherence, but not judge it and just be like, well, that's where they're at. It still hurts me very much, but that's where they're at. When we first begin, there's often this desire to really share it with everyone. Yeah. And to get everyone on the same page and like, oh my God, I learned this lesson. I want to like share it with you. And then if they're not receptive, you're like, no, but you need to share it. Or like, you need to understand it. And you're like wanting to shake them until they're on the same page as you. And that's exhausting in itself. And I think that's kind of the, like, once you're in the journey and you're really excited to share it, then you're going to have this initial hurdle of understanding that like other people aren't always going to be there with you, and that you will waste a ton of energy wanting them to be, and that you just have to love them and go, okay, you're there.
This is my medicine, and maybe it's not the medicine that works for you or that you need.
Yeah. And knowing what I know about you, I can't expect you to act any different. This next section is about Nina's experience with authentic relating.
Authentic relating is great. It teaches opting in. Can I share something exciting with you? Can I talk about something edgy and that's kind of weighing on my heart with you? So yeah, authentic relating has changed the game for me.
What is authentic relating?
I'm not a teacher, but authentic relating is a methodology. So it's kind of a structure that you can follow to be a better communicator, a better listener. A lot of the times when we are in conversation, we're not actually actively listening. We're thinking about what we are going to say.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I've had a lot of problems with that, especially in my romantic relationships. And learning how to truly listen and honor that person and their experience cultivates compassion in myself. It cultivates a broader awareness, different perspective, and also like stories. We create all sorts of stories in our imagination. And my theta healing teacher actually has been a beautiful reflection of that, of being like, hey, I really would like to stay connected as friends. And so being very clear with our intention, being very clear with our words, and saying, okay, as your theta healing instructor, I would suggest this. As your friend, maybe I would suggest this.
Totally.
So self-awareness,
Yeah.
it always for me comes back to my level of self-awareness and how I'm honoring that. Because I notice when I'm people pleasing or like that insecurity starts coming out, then I'll maybe commit to something that I'm actually not resourced for, or I'll agree to something that I actually don't align with anymore.
Yeah.
So maintaining the self-care and knowing that when I'm in my full embodiment, it inevitably attracts what I need.
It's so true. Like all of these issues, everything always comes back to self. Like whatever you're trying to solve, whatever you're trying to attract, whatever you want to manifest or bring back, like you have to know yourself truly and wholly, and with the parts that you may not love and working through loving them or fine tuning them. Yeah. I love that. Like, can we be friends thing when you see a cool girl and it like the first couple times I did it, it ignited this like little girl energy in me. And it was remembering how I would relate to other women in like elementary school or middle school before, no, probably just elementary school or like kindergarten, preschool, whatever order those go in. Before there was like the hormones and the body image and the
programs.
Yeah. Because girls, like they measure confidence levels and they see it about 12, 13, 14 girls across all cultures, existence at that age, it plummets. And there's a lot of societal pressure and then the hormonal changes. So if we can get back to, and I'm sure that kind of plays into some inner child work, but I think it's especially specific for women in terms of body image and gender roles, getting back to that and eliminating that competition of being like, I love what you said. We do the same thing. We both sound heal, or we both do theta healing. We both teach yoga, but it's totally different.
Right.
Because I hold myself back. I'm like, I've been wanting to get sound bowls forever, but I was like, that's Nina's thing.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
You can buy them anywhere you want to buy them.
Yeah.
And it's a tool. That's all this external shit is. It's just tools.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. I had one of my best friends was a sound healer, and my boyfriend gave me my set of bowls because I had expressed like, oh, one day I'll be a sound healer along with whatever I'm doing.
Yeah. And
it's not my main thing, but that was a beautiful gesture. And so I don't think I would have gotten into it because of loyalty or whatever this people pleasing bullshit you want to call it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, if that brings you joy, I want you to do that, and let's play together.
Yeah.
Or if you just want that for your own self, then do that for yourself.
Yeah, because why do we immediately think that collaboration is not an option? Yeah, just because one person is doing one thing, why does that then somehow imply, like without being said,
territorial
or like that you guys couldn't collaborate? Like, what if you make a freaking sound healing chorus and there's 20 of you guys, like there's.
And how powerful would that be for the masses?
Yeah.
Right. It comes back down to your intention. Are you in survival mode, Are you protecting yourself, or are you choosing to actively soften and say, Jules, I saw that you got a set. I want to support you, but I feel a little bit triggered.
Yeah.
Just being fucking honest about it.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
If you want to set, please, I'll help you, whatever you need. And I do collaborate with another sound healer. She was also a competition dancer. She also does breath work. She also is a great guided meditation person. And it's beautiful because we just can work together, and seamlessly I'll be having a hard day and she's like, don't worry, I got you. Or I'll be like, don't worry, I got you, boo.
Yeah.
I can lead it today. Or let's split it. What do you feel like doing? What feels like a full body yes?
Yeah. And you and I had an event planned, and I think I got COVID, and I was like super freaking sick, and you had to take over the whole event, and like, thank God. But I thought truly when I was sick, I was having these thoughts of like, God, I wouldn't want to be doing this with anyone else, because I know anyone else would like make me feel super guilty about it. And like, I already had the guilt of like being sick ? Like, that's not something that, you can really control.
When I had COVID too, and it was put upon me by an older woman. So if you're out there, don't be ashamed if you're sick. Just take care of yourself.
Yeah. Like, you don't even have to apologize. I don't know. Like, when you're apologizing, just be mindful of like what you're apologizing for.
Why
like,
are you apologizing?
Because are you apologizing for your existence at that point? Because we do that very often.
Especially as women.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry for being in the door. Oh, I'm sorry for crying. And crying is such a beautiful expression.
Oh my God. The like sharing of emotions. Then people go, I'm sorry. I'm like, stop. Yeah. Now I feel sorry that you're sorry. Can you stop being sorry? Can we both just like.
It ruins the essence.
I just showed my true self. I'm sorry.
Like, what?
Yeah. No wonder we have problems with authenticity, right?
Yeah.
Every time we get into it, we have to apologize for it. Yeah. Well, Nina, I adore you. Thank you so much for this.
Go on and on and on.
Yeah. And hopefully we will. Like, I'd love to have another episode, but Sacred Sisterhood, y'all. Follow Nina on Instagram, Nina_Divina, DIVINA_. I don't know if Divina would ever be spelled another way, just for clarification purposes.
Those pure English speakers.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was an honor. I love talking with you and philosophizing and discovering ourselves with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. That's been a great gift.
Yeah.
I love you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you or your company are looking to jump into the podcast world, now is the time. The Plug Agency is here to connect you to the full power of podcasting. You just record and leave the rest to us. The people are listening and want to hear from you. theplug-agency.com. That's theplug-agency.com. Click the link in the episode description for an exclusive offer.